Pittsburgh at the University of Pittsburgh. What I hope to do today is talk a little bit about some of the history of community organizing, but then get into some of what's up here, which these are like some rules for community organizing, and we'll go through each one that will help draw out some aspects of what is involved in terms of community organizing. How many of you have done community organizing, know community organizers, have worked with people in your community? Everybody probably has to some extent or another. There's one thing we kind of say now, that in one sense, we are all community organizers, in one sense, or in some sense. And that's very important, particularly as we move forward. Like Marty Wilson was saying, basically we have to change the way we look at things. In order to change the way we look at things and move forward and do things differently, we all have to participate in helping to make that change. What I'm going to first talk about is some history. I can be boring when I talk sometimes. If I'm too boring, just go to sleep. It's okay. Well, I'll just keep talking anyhow. But first I wanted to start off, and all the stuff I'm talking about is nothing that I made up or came up with. I'm just giving you back some information from people I know or have read about, or people who have written about community organizing. And there's a number of different things and different approaches we can take. But I just wanted to start off that most of the time in the United States, when we study community organizing, we look at like 1940 up until about now. Most of the time in the United States. Community organizing, though, predates 1940. People were doing community organizing way back. And community organizing takes place all over the place, not just in the United States. However, what I'm talking about is going to be kind of U.S.-centric, and it's just going to be focused more recently. And it may not, and it won't cover everything. That's the other thing. Those of us who are community organizers, we usually learn a particular model for organizing, and our model is the correct model. Just like my history is the correct history. And other people's model is, that's how they do it, but it's not the correct one. But in community organizing in the United States after World War II, it became a distinct form of organization building and social activism. And we start to talk about it pretty much around the 1940s. Mainly community organizing is building membership organizations. Now, everybody's definition is not that. This is a definition, but it's the right definition. So if you're not building a membership organization, you're not doing community organizing. And this, now everybody's doing something different. Take it in a grain of salt, but this is a clear view on what it is. Sometimes we build organizations that the members are organizations. We build coalitions. So sometimes when we're community organizing, we're building organizations of organizations or coalitions. Other times, we're building organizations made up of individuals or families, which is another type of organizing. We could be organizing individuals, or we could be organizing families when we do our community organizing, either coalitions or individuals. Usually when we do community organizing, we don't do both. It's very rare you'll see an organization with individual members and organizational members. There are organizations like that, but it's very rare that we organize in both those ways at the same time. Just historically, there have been a number of different organizing networks developed in the United States since World War II. And each one kind of develops their own methods and theories on what community organizing is and how it takes place. Most of the time, one of the organizations we talk about is Industrial Areas Foundation. How many people are familiar with Industrial Areas Foundation? They have chapters that aren't far from here, I'm sure. And they grew out of the organizing work of Saul Alinsky. Saul Alinsky was in Chicago for a while, and he's acknowledged by a lot of people as the, quote, father of community organizing. I don't know, I would make him the father, but he was very influential in terms of everybody that does organizing pretty much has studied what Saul Alinsky did and his methods. And it helped everybody learn more about how to do community organizing. The main reason we really study Saul Alinsky so much is he wrote it down. There were a lot of people that organized before Saul Alinsky, but they didn't write it down and write it down as a method. And this is how it's done, and these are the ways you should do it. But Saul, because he wrote it down, it became a model of organizing, not just how he did it. And it could be replicated. And that's what made Saul Alinsky who Saul Alinsky is when we study what he did. But basically, he built organizations of organizations, coalitions. Churches, unions, community organizations working together in coalition. That was pretty much a big part of his model. His first, well, not his first, but his most successful organization was called the Back of the Yards Neighborhood Council in Chicago. And based on the work of the Back of the Yards Neighborhood Councils, he and others expanded his model, which led to basically the Industrial Areas Foundation grew out of that first organization that he worked with. And they built the Industrial Areas Foundation to test out whether the organizing methods of Saul Alinsky could be used in other situations. We know about Saul Alinsky because he wrote 2 books. One was called Reveille for Radicals. He wrote that in 1946. And the other was called Rules for Radicals, and that was written in 1970. Both of those books were little paperback books. I might have been hardcover at one point. That you can read. They're a quick read, but they're really good because they give you a sense of Saul Alinsky, the organizing he did, and what his model was about. But Saul Alinsky's method or way of organizing had 5 basic premises. And if you hear Saul Alinsky tell it, these are the correct ways to do it. The first is the role of the organizer and the role of the community leader are distinct. The leaders in your organization are volunteers who are from the community that you're organizing. The professional staff are the organizers. The leader from the community always represents the organization, and the professional staff person is in the background. That's part of the method of Saul Alinsky, the way he sees it. If you're going to go on TV, it will be one of the leaders from the organization, never the organizer, that will go on TV. Now, this view is an organizer. Part of the assumption in this view is the organizer came to the neighborhood or came to the place from outside. Sometimes you can have an organizer that comes from within as well. And it gets a little bit more complicated, but his model was real clear. There are 2 distinct roles. If negotiation needs to take place, the community leaders negotiate, not the organizer. The organizer really works in the background, doing all the, sometimes we call it grunt work, other times we call it informal work. But preparing the agendas along with the members, making phone calls, all that kind of stuff is stuff that the organizers do pretty much in the background. But it's clear that the upfront kind of work is reserved for the volunteer leaders in the Alinsky model. But that's the first premise. The role of the organizer and the role of the community leader are distinct. The second premise is people power is based on overwhelming numbers. You got to get as many people out as you can in order to win. So he's organizing coalitions of different churches and unions and community groups, and they're looking for numbers to get numbers out to make it clear that a lot of people are concerned about whatever the issue is. But overwhelming numbers is what we're trying to use this organization to build in support of our cause. Another third premise is issue campaigns should focus on a single individual decision maker. You're not trying to fight City Hall. You're trying to fight Mayor so-and-so, or Councilperson so-and-so, or Director so-and-so. An individual whose name you know that can make the decision for what you want. You got to identify that single individual decision maker and focus on them.